Hello and welcome to Kla-How-Ya, sponsored by the Vernon Friendship Centre, located at 2902 29th Avenue. On our program today, we will have Robert Louie, a Native lawyer, and Val Brewer with Native issues. We'd like to thank Robert Louie, a lawyer of Okanagan Native ancestry, for coming on the program. He's presently a lawyer for Syilx McGuire Cole here in Vernon. I understand you will be teaching Native law this summer in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Can you tell me a bit about the course that you're teaching?
Yes, Tracey. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me to the program. Yes, I have been invited to teach a pre-law orientation program at the University of Saskatchewan this summer. The program basically is a pre-law orientation program. It's basically designed to help Native students gain admission into law school. The course itself is taking place in Saskatoon at the University of Saskatchewan. And we're expecting, we understand, about 30 students from across Canada that will be attending the course.
I see. How long? This program's 2 months. And do you have to be Native to enroll?
Yes, you've got to have a Native ancestry background, either being a status or a non-status or Métis or Inuit or some Native ancestry is what the basic requirement is to enter this program.
And students from all over Canada?
That's correct. All over Canada, they've got applicants from British Columbia, Alberta, all the other provinces, as I understand it, as well. I'm not sure if there will be any Inuvik students this year. I understand that 1984, I believe, they had their first Inuvik student that enrolled into the program, so there may or may not be some Inuvik students this year. I'm not sure.
I see. If a person was interested in getting into this program, how would they go about getting an application?
Well, I've got some applications forms with me, actually, but this is an application form here, and I've got a number of them. What they could do, perhaps, is contact the University of Saskatchewan Native Law Centre. Telephone numbers and so forth, I do have at my office, and perhaps I can leave some of these forms with the Friendship Centre here in Vernon. But that would be the first step, is probably to contact the Native Law Centre.
In Saskatchewan?
That's correct. That's correct. To give some idea of the admission requirements into this particular program this summer, a person would have to make their application to the law schools first of all, get accepted, either conditionally or unconditionally. One of the criteria that the law schools have quite often used, that is that the Native student must enter into the Saskatchewan Native Law program, pass it, and then that person is accepted into that particular Native into the law school that person has applied to. Basically, the requirements is that the Native student must have at least 2 years university or its equivalent, be mature. There's a number of other criteria that's looked at as well. It includes a LSAT, which is a law school admission test. The Native student must write that LSAT and score fairly well on it, and must as well the university background. They should have a fairly good academic grading as well. As I understand it, some of the other criteria that the law schools will look at, including this Native Law Centre, they'll look at that person's past work experience, their background, the age, and basically the law schools will look at the performance that student does at this program of legal studies here in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I understand you took the same program a few years back.
Yes, I did.
Could you tell us a bit about the difficulties that you had in this program to maybe help somebody that is watching and that's interested in this program? Certainly.
I recall quite vividly some of the difficulties I had. First of all was getting used to the rigorous studying that I underwent. Basically, the scenario is as if you were put into first-year law It's quite intimidating. It's a bit of a scary feeling.
Yeah.
And certainly I felt that. And I felt the pressures. Certainly I found that I had to devote 100% of my time studying and preparing myself for law school and just to get through this particular program. It was rigorous, and I suppose that was those are the things I recall most about the program.
Study habits.
Study habits, certainly. And that's certainly one of the basic objectives of this program, is to train and to teach Native law students how to study law.
Can you tell us a bit about the course content?
Yes. The courses themselves will cover 5 basic areas. Some of the areas, well, all these areas actually are encountered in law school and been viewed as perhaps the basic areas of law. They'll include contracts, they'll include criminal law, they'll include property, legal writing, and torts. Now the latter, the torts, is the course that I've been asked to teach at this at the course this summer.
Do you have any statistics on the number of Native lawyers in Canada as of today?
Yes, I've got some approximate statistics for you. These are, as I say, approximate only. The last updated one that I have is for 1984. To give you some idea, maybe some of the...
That's fairly recent.
It's fairly close, and I can be perhaps within 5 or 6 students, perhaps, of being accurate, I believe. First of all, in 1984, there were 64 Native law students of Native ancestry who had obtained law degrees. Okay. Now, in 1985, May of 1985, there was probably about 73, 74 Native students who obtained law degrees. 1986, the next graduation year will be in May of this year, and I'm not sure how many students are going to be obtaining their law degrees, will be passing their courses and obtaining law degrees. I expect it somewhere to be in the neighborhood of somewhere between 5 and 15, perhaps. So that's what we've got here. I understand that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of approximately 40 Native students who are presently enrolled in law schools. And some other statistics that might be of some interest to the audience. The program in Saskatchewan actually started in 1973. That's when the program first got underway. At that time, there were 36 applications received from across Canada, Native applicants who applied to the Native law program. In 1984, apparently was 61 applications received. Now, the applications that were accepted, going back to 1973, there were 15, and 1984, there were 34 applications that were accepted. Now, the applicants who registered in program and who withdrew from the program were 14 in 1973 and 29 in 1984. Oh, I'm sorry, that is a bit, I understand that there's 1973, there were 15 applications accepted and 14 that actually went into the program in 1973. Pardon me for that. In 1984, there were 34 applications accepted and apparently 29 who actually went into the program itself. Now, something that might be of interest to the audience is the number of men and number of women who go through the program. And the statistics basically show that the number of women applicants and who are going through the program have increased. For example, in 1973, there were 11 men who went through the program and 3 women. Now, in 1984, I understand the statistics to be that there were 17 men and 12 women. So I think that is a general trend that you'll see throughout the country, is that the number of women applicants who are pursuing a career in law is slowly increasing. And that applies to Natives as well.
What kind of credibility do you get after you complete this law program?
Well, this program, as I mentioned, is a pre-law orientation program. There's really no credits, per se, that are obtained. What it basically does is first of all, prepares the students for the study of law. Secondly, it assists in the assessment of the student's potential for the successful study of law. So quite often you'll see the law schools will want a native law student to go through this program to pass it. So this year we're looking at approximately 30, as I mentioned before, 30 applicants who we expect to be enrolled in the program. Now, if the trend is anything like what's happened in the past, there will be a percentage of them that will not be recommended to go through the program. They'll pick out the students who are dedicated, who have the potential, and it's a form of assessment. And it assists the law schools, and it will assist the students as well as to whether or not they will be accepted.
How successful are the students that enroll? Is there a failure rate, like a high failure rate, or do most people that enroll in this course pass?
Well, that varies from year to year. It depends on the students themselves. I don't know if you could. As I understand it, there's no bell curve, or there's no set criteria that they must fail or must pass so many students. So it's actually up to each and every student. Hopefully, I think that's always been the hope every year, that they want all the applicants who actually enter the program, they want, of course, all those applicants to pass this course and to be enrolled into law school. Now, one of these years, perhaps we'll see that. Hopefully, this will be that year.
That sounds like a really great program.
Yes, I think I viewed it as, I went through the program in 1979, and I feel that I've benefited immensely from the program. It certainly gave me the assistance that I felt that I needed, and certainly I'm sure that there's many other lawyers who have got their law degrees and who are now practicing law, who owe quite a bit to this Saskatchewan Native Law program.
How do you feel yourself about going from practicing law right now to teaching?
Well, I'm quite thrilled for being given the opportunity to now go back to Saskatchewan and teach a course that I passed, and something that I feel dedicated to, that I feel that I owe something to the potential Native law students across Canada. And it's the way that I see myself giving some of my time to assist some students which might help them go through and complete law school to obtain their law degrees, and perhaps to go further on and practice law.
Bob, you mentioned earlier that you were teaching torts. Can you explain this a little bit more so I can understand?
Yes, certainly. I can understand that some of the audience might not really understand what torts is. I know when I first heard the word torts, I thought it was a form of dessert. And I'm sure that many people might think the same way. Torts is, maybe if I can just maybe condense it as much as I can, a tort is basically a private or civil wrong or injury done to someone, and the remedy is damages. Okay, for a tort to occur, there must always be a violation of some duty owing to a person wronged. Examples of torts might include negligence, malpractice suits, intentional trespass of property, slander, libel actions. Looking at negligence, just as an example, so you have a motor vehicle accident. Someone goes through a red light and runs into another vehicle. The person that was run into in the other vehicle is injured. There is a wrong that's been done to that person by the wrongdoer, the person who went through the red light. it develops into an action of negligence. So malpractice, another example, a doctor, for example, there's been operations performed by doctors in which the doctors have been negligent in. I recall one case in which the action centered on the doctor actually leaving a sponge in the intestines of an individual. Now that doctor was obviously at wrong. He had a duty to the patient not to leave that sponge, to perform his operation the best possible way he could, and certainly leaving a sponge in that individual's intestines was not performing his duties. That's a form of tort. Intentional trespass of property is another example. You have lands. You might own property. Say you have a lawn. You have flowers growing over that lawn. Someone off the street intentionally walks across your property, walks across your flower bed, damages your flowers and garden. That's an intentional wrong that's been done to you. It's a trespass of property, and it's an area of law which is centered under torts. Slander and libel, of course, are other actions that torts are involved in. It's a very substantial area of the law.
Okay, can you help me on some dates when the program will be starting, and how long before it's too late before your applications are in?
Certainly. As I understand it, the program of legal studies for Native people in Saskatchewan varies from year to year. Now this year, I believe the first day of the course, I believe, is May 26th. That's, I believe, a Monday. And I believe the course will run up until approximately July 18th of this year, so almost 2 months. Now, as far as the application deadlines, if a person is interested, a Native person of Indian ancestry is interested into enrolling into this program, those applications should be in preferably by the fall of the previous year to give a sufficient lead time for that applicant to be admitted into law school. It gives time to write the LSAT, the law school admission tests. It gives time for the various law schools to look at the applications, to respond, and basically it gives enough lead time that all the applicants that do apply, that have their applications in Saskatchewan to enroll into this program, it gives the administration a bit of time to select out which applicants should be accepted and which should not. So if anyone in the audience is interested in applying to the Saskatchewan Native Law program, they should do so, and they should do so as quickly and allow sufficient time as they can, preferably the fall of the previous year. So as far as anyone interested in this particular year's program, I'm afraid it's impossible at this point in time, but anyone interested, say, in next year, 1987, they should have their applications in preferably by the fall of this year.
Do you know if there are any funding sources available? Say if anybody wants to go into this program and they don't have any funding.
Yes, there are funding sources that are available. It varies depending on the actual applicant himself or herself. Status Indians, for example, who are members of bands, the bands themselves do have, as I understand, allotted certain education monies that's provided through the Department of Indian Affairs. Now, a person of that background may apply to their own band for the funding sources. Now, as far as non-status Indians, people who have perhaps Métis background, I understand that the Department of Justice has certain fundings that is available. I understood at one point in time that there were, I believe, 5 scholarships that the Department of Justice has, and if a person qualifies for that scholarship, the person might be allowed to receive funding assistance. And I understand that the funding assistance from both the bands and the Department of Justice is adequate enough to cover the tuition fees I understand it's adequate enough to cover the various books that are required and a very minimal living allowance, all of which is very necessary and important to a person who's applying and needs financial assistance.
Okay. Back to where you're working now here in the Vernon community, can you tell me about your involvement with the Vernon community and when you started and some of your past experiences?
Certainly. I suppose when I started, I guess going back to the year I graduated from law school. I graduated from the University of Victoria in May of 1982, I believe. And upon my graduation, I applied for my articles. And I was hired by the firm of Syilx McGuire at that time, now Syilx McGuire and Cole, and articled for 1 year. Okay, that is a basic requirement of any lawyer who is interested in becoming a lawyer. They must article for a period of 1 year after receiving their law degree. And I went through, of course, the same process. So I was hired by Syilx McGuire and have been practicing with Syilx McGuire and Cole ever since then. And the areas of practice that I deal in are quite general at this point in time.
So, can you tell us about any of your bad days or your good days?
Well, certainly I can tell you some of the bad days. I'm sure every lawyer faces that daily. I suppose there's certainly much time involved in practicing law. I find that much of my time is consumed daily. A day goes by before I even know it. A normal 10-hour day is certainly not unusual for any lawyer, I'm sure, that is practicing law. Especially lawyers who have just recently been called, the first 1 to 5 year lawyers. I'm sure they spend much more time than what people ordinarily think of lawyers practicing. So it is demanding. That, I suppose, is I called it bad. Perhaps in some ways it's good. It keeps me occupied, certainly. Good things, I suppose it's always nice to know that you've won a case for a client. You've made some client happy. I find that sometimes quite elating. I suppose an example might be a matrimonial matter where you've got a custody of children at issue. You've been retained by the client to do a job for the client, and that job might be to obtain custody of his child or her child. And if you do obtain custody, it's quite often an elating experience to see the expression on the client's face and to feel that you've done a good job in representing the client. Those are some of the good things that I can see. Practice of law that I found it's been quite rewarding, and I'm generally quite pleased in actually practicing law. At this point in time, I don't know if I'd be interested in pursuing any other career. I don't think that I ever will pursue another career. I think I'll probably stay in the practice of law now for at least a number of years.
Okay, so we're really happy to have you on the program, and we're gonna be supporting you when you're down in Saskatchewan, and we wish you the best of luck. And thanks for coming on the program, Robert.
Thank you very much, Tracey. Very nice to be here.
This is Tracey Bonneau with Kla-How-Ya, and next we have Val Brewer with Native Issues.
Thank you, Tracey. Aboriginal People Census. There will be an Aboriginal People Census program in conjunction with National Census Day, June 3rd. I am hoping to enlighten everyone on the importance of including yourself in and encouraging others to do the same. Our Native leaders and organizations need complete and accurate information to draw on when they are preparing to bring local and national attention to Native issues. The Aboriginal People Census will provide a detailed information of the social and economic conditions and needs. Statistical information can make a significant contribution in the preparations of Native leaders. This information will be essential at the first Aboriginal Conference in the spring of 1987. On Thursday, April 24th, There will be a census meeting in the boardroom at the Friendship Centre at 1 o'clock. We will be featuring guest speaker Linda Day from the Aboriginal People Census Program. Remember, our nation's strengths are in our numbers. This has been your Native Issue for this week. Val Brewer reporting for Kla-How-Ya.
Thank you, Val, for the Native Issues, and we'd also like to make a special thanks to Robert Louie, a lawyer that came in for an interview today. This has been Tracey Bonneau with Kla-How-Ya.